All right, today we're jumping into a really interesting proposal for a carbon tax in Malaysia. We're going to break down exactly how it's supposed to work and, what it could actually mean for the country's economy and its climate goals.
I mean, it's the huge question at the center of all climate policy, right? So let's get into it. This proposal out of Malaysia, it tries to do exactly that. It's a system designed to put a price on pollution. But, and this is the key part, it reinvests every single dollar right back into the economy and its people.
So you might be asking, why a carbon tax? And why now in Malaysia? Well, to really get a handle on the solution they're proposing, we first have to understand the sheer scale of the challenge they're up against.
Okay, take a look at this. This chart really makes it crystal clear where the problem is. I mean, nearly half of the country's CO2 emissions are just from making electricity and heat. Then you add in transport and manufacturing, and boom, you're looking at over 85% of the total, all from just a few sectors. And that kind of concentration is precisely why a targeted policy like this could actually work really well.
And this isn't a problem that's just standing still. As Malaysia's economy has grown, its emissions have grown right along with it. In fact, they've more than doubled since the year 2000. So you have this really tight link between development and carbon pollution, and that's the exact pattern the country is now trying to break. The goal? A future where you can have growth, but green growth.
So here's the kicker. The pressure to change is coming from literally everywhere. From the outside, you've got policies like the EU's new Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, or CBAM. That's basically a tax on imports that are carbon heavy, which is a direct threat to Malaysian exports if they don't clean up their act. And then, at home, the government has its own ambitious goals for 2030 and 2050. So really, the question isn't if they need to act, it's how.
All right, so let's get into the solution they've laid out. And it's not just a straightforward tax. It's actually a hybrid model, one that's been specifically tailored for Malaysia's unique economy.
And this is where it gets clever. It's a two-pronged attack, really. First, you have an upstream tax. This one hits fossil fuels, think coal, natural gas, right at the source as soon as they come into the economy. Then, you've got a downstream tax that targets the actual emissions coming out of the smokestacks of big industrial plants like cement and steel. It's a hybrid system, and the whole point is to get maximum coverage without making it a bureaucratic nightmare.
So what's the starting price? It kicks off at 40 ringgit per ton of CO2. And the key here is predictability. The idea is to set a clear price path that goes up gradually over time. Why? To give businesses the stability and certainty they need to make those big, long-term investments in cleaner tech.
Okay, but putting a price on carbon is one thing. It's totally useless if you can't actually measure it accurately, right? So how do you make sure the numbers are solid? Well, that's where the whole technical foundation comes into play, a digital tracking system.
The whole system is built on this four-step digital process they're calling MyCARR. Think of it as the backbone. Before a year even kicks off, companies have to submit a plan for how they're going to track their emissions. Then, at the end of the year, they report their numbers. But, and this is crucial, that data gets checked by an independent third-party auditor. It's only after that verification step that the final official data gets sent to the tax authorities. The whole thing is designed to create a transparent, auditable trail for every single ton of carbon.
Okay, now for what I think is the most interesting part of this whole proposal. What happens to the money? Because it doesn't just disappear into some general government bank account. No, the whole framework is designed as a closed loop.
Yep, that's the core principle right there. 100%. Every single ringgit collected gets recycled directly back into the economy. So this isn't about making government bigger. It's about using that money to fuel a fair and productive green transition that hopefully works for everyone.
So here's how that recycling works. A full half of the money, 50%, goes straight back to the people, to households, as something called a carbon dividend. Then, another 30% gets put into a green growth fund, which is there to help industries and smaller businesses go green. And that last 20%, that's invested in public green infrastructure. Think things like more EV charging stations.
And this table, this is fascinating. It really shows how that carbon dividend is designed to make the whole thing fair. Look, everyone will see slightly higher costs, that's true. But that flat dividend payment pretty much cancels out the extra costs for low-income households. In the end, they're only down by less than 1 ringgit a month. It's a way to protect the most vulnerable people from the impact, which is absolutely crucial for getting public support for a policy like this.
Okay, so we've got the tax, we've got the tracking system, and we know where the money goes, but what does this all look like for an actual company? On the ground. Let's walk through a real-world test case to see it in action. Let's imagine a company. We'll call them XYZ Steel. They're a mid-sized steel mill. They've done all the reporting and verification, and their final number for the year is 100,000 tons of CO2. So let's do the math and see how their tax bill gets calculated.
All right, the first step is simple math. You take their 100,000 tons of emissions, multiply it by the 40 ringgit per ton price, and you get a gross tax of 4 million ringgit. But, and this is a big but, that's just the starting line. Now the support mechanisms start to kick in. First off, steel is a global business, right? They're competing with companies all over the world. So to keep them competitive, the plan gives them a transitional allowance. In this case, it covers 60% of their emissions, which immediately knocks 2.4 million ringgit right off the top.
Next, remember that upstream tax on fuel? Well, you don't want to tax them twice, so the company gets a credit for the tax that was already paid on the fuel they bought. That shaves another 800,000 ringgit off their bill.
So, after all that, their final tax bill comes all the way down from 4 million to just 800,000 ringgit. And this example really shows you what the system is trying to do. It's designed to be firm, but also fair. It protects these key industries while still giving them a really powerful reason to clean up their operations over time.
At the end of the day, this whole proposal is trying to answer that big question we started with. Can you fight climate change and help the economy at the same time? By directly linking a price on pollution with money back in people's pockets and investments in green tech, it tries to create this self-sustaining cycle. It's a really pragmatic plan built for the real world, and it leaves us with one final big question to think about. Could this kind of carefully balanced model be a blueprint not just for Malaysia, but for other nations too?